ரேஷன் கடைகளில் உணவுப் பொருட்களை பெறும் அனைத்து குடும்பங்களும் இதனால் பயனடையும். இதனால ரேஷன் கடைகளில் உணவுப் பொருட்களை பெறக்கூடிய அனைத்து குடும்பங்களும் நிச்சயமாக பயனடையும்.
মায়েরাই হচ্ছে বঙ্গ নারী, বঙ্গ জননী, বঙ্গশ্রী, বিশ্বশ্রী।
Everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. A very happy Women's Day, first to begin with, to all the viewers out there. Today, India's only woman Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee took out a Padyatra and said that the women of Bengal are her strength. TMC chief also pressed the demand for free cooking gas and cylinders for women in the state. And it's not just Bengal. Down south in Tamil Nadu, while the incumbent AIADMK have announced giving 8 grams of gold and 50,000 as marriage assistance for 1 lakh women before April, challenger MK Stalin and Kamal Hassan have promised monthly income to support the homemakers. Even in the poll-bound Assam, Priyanka Gandhi promised 50% job quota for women. So why is the women vote so important that all political parties are busy lining up sops aimed at women? There are several states such as Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, where over 50% are women voters. Women voters are now playing a bigger role in elections than ever before. Recently in Bihar, they tilted the balance of power in favor of Nitish Kumar despite massive anti-incumbency against him. Popularity among women also helped J. Jayalalitha retain power despite all odds in Tamil Nadu in 2016. Women empowerment has been the underlining theme of all the political parties since independence. However, it hasn't moved beyond the political lip service, be it reservation for women in parliament, political parties giving poll tickets to them. The burning issue of women's security or gender equality in income pay parity remains unaddressed. Parties come and go, so do netas. But beyond making them the face of political advertisements and campaigns, we have seen that, or slogans in name of women, how much has it really changed? So is this crucial gender constituency just relevant before elections and are forgotten after that? Why is it that despite substantial increase in voting percentage of women in comparison to their male counterpart, women continue to be underrepresented in legislative assemblies and in parliament? We have an all-women panel on News Epicenter this evening. Let me bring in the women today. Supriya Shunate, spokesperson of the Congress. Ankita Barthwal is a researcher associate at CPR. Radhika Ramaseshan, columnist. Priyanka Tibrewal is a leader of West Bengal BJP. We are also being joined by Professor Ananya Chakravarti. She is a political analyst. Ankita, I'm going to begin with you. This irony, contradiction at the same time, would you say, that your survey has brought out, that while women may be voting in greater numbers, but they don't find equal representation in legislative assemblies and in parliament?
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Absolutely, there's a glaring irony to this, and I think the latest global gender gap report tells us the extent of this irony. Among the 153 countries that they surveyed, India was the only country where the economic gender gap was greater than the political gender gap. So even as women in India have made great strides in political participation in the last few decades, the same has not translated into economic empowerment, has definitely not translated into comparable social empowerment. And I think the reason behind those
Yes.
are quite multifaceted.
And what exactly is the reason?
Yeah, I mean, there's no one reason, but I think one big reason is that politics still remains a male-dominated sphere, right? Whatever political changes we see with women's participation does not imply that structural social restrictions on women's freedom have disappeared. it does not mean that we have stopped being a patriarchal society, right? So it's natural that even if we have made very limited but definite gains in politics, unless and until politicians actually actively address the social norms that restrict women's freedoms, it is unlikely that the social sphere or the economic empowerment would be very visible to us in the coming years.
I'm going to talk about that political representation in just a bit. But before that, Radhika, if political parties are competing with SOPs or promises, the kinds that we are seeing in Tamil Nadu, for example, where DMK has promised every ration card holder, housewife, 1,000 rupees a month, or MNM saying homemakers should be paid, then should this lead to larger debate on salaries for homemakers, or should it be just welcomed as recognition at large?
Well, there are two ways of looking at it. Of course, Kamal Hassan talked about monetizing domestic work. Now, I have a serious problem with that, because first of all, you are engendering the stereotype of women as homemakers, and what does homemaking essentially mean? It binds you to a kind of drudgery, from which every woman would ideally want to snap out. I mean, even in villages, women, a wave of a kind of liberation. It's not really liberation, mind you. It's back-breaking work, but they like to go out into the field because it's just a liberation from the kind of drudgery that binds them at home. So monetizing housework is going to just compound that kind of drudgery. So, it's a kind of recognition, of course, that here is a woman who's slaving in the kitchen or wherever, washing clothes or whatever. So I guess you can say it's a very tiny kind of step, incremental, if you may say so, though I don't agree with it at all. You took the example of Tamil Nadu and the AIDMK promising gold and a kind of stipend for marriage. Now that again, it's perpetuating a stereotype. Gold. I mean, families, I'm from Tamil Nadu. I know families have mortgaged their everything in order to raise money and buy gold for their daughters. It offers some kind of a security in their opinion. But the point is that all the jewelry then goes into the bank locker or whatever, or the lockers, home lockers of the in-laws, and it really gives no security whatsoever to the woman, which I guess is the original intent. So when you are talking about gender issues, it's very and SOPs, it's very important to get to the bottom of it.
So reinforce the stereotypes. So Priya, parties headed by women, I would say, have greater responsibilities in leading by example. Mamata Banerjee, for example, took that Padyatra and made that appeal that LPG should be free. But internal party representation, or even ensuring the women are represented well within the party, be it the Congress Working Committee or otherwise, and also when it comes to giving them tickets. Isn't it rather ironical that when the parties are led by women, then they fail women more?
No, absolutely not. I completely disagree with you. And while I would want to wish everybody a happy Women's Day like you did in the beginning, I think the rest of the 364 days also belong to us, and we must celebrate our womanhood there.
Sure.
I personally feel, and I say this with much conviction, that Mrs. Sonia Gandhi did lead, she did spear the women's reservation bill. And it was passed in one house. We had the paucity of numbers. It could not be passed in the other house. So let's move away from paper tigers. And if this government is totally convinced about women's empowerment, they have the brute majority. Let's not serve free lunches to women MPs. They have a brute majority. Let's get the women's reservation bill. Let's walk the talk. What is this thing about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao? Let's get women in decision making. Let's field as many women possible. I mean, even today, 15% of our MPs, that's all that women constitute.
Yes.
But Maria, I also think it's a larger reflection of where we are as a society. I've worked in a corporate setup. You are in a corporate setup. We've been lucky because there are very many women, in electronic media. But the reality is that women form less than 20% of India's workforce.
That's
and
true.
even less than that at the top jobs at the CXO level. And this is a reflection of our society. So this has to change, and it will only change at the societal level. It will need affirmative action. Rajiv Gandhi had the conviction of courage, and he went ahead with reservation for women at the panchayati level. This government has the numbers. I appeal to them through your show. Let's get the women's reservation bill. The Congress championed it. We passed it in one house. It did not go through the other house because we did not have the numbers. You have the numbers. If you're convinced about this, let's do it.
Priyanka, why just lip service then? Because the real taste certainly would be when you ensure that the women's reservation bill is passed.
See, definitely I agree to that, and that would be spoken about soon. But apart from that, when you were speaking about West Bengal, where you were saying that Mamata Banerjee is seen walking on the street, so since I am from West Bengal, I will certainly speak on it. See, why is Mamata Banerjee walking on the streets now? When the schemes like Ujala Yojana and Ujjwal Yojana and other central schemes as well, be it Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, be it Ayushman Yojana, anything for that matter, she did not allow them to be implemented in West Bengal. Then she was not concerned about the free gas services and the LPG which was being given to the women. She stood and she said that she will not allow those schemes to be implemented in West Bengal. Then she wasn't worried. But today, just before a month of the election, she's seen walking on the streets. This is the same Mamata Banerjee whose nephew just a month back had said that only those who have guts will do TMC and TMC Congress in West Bengal, and the others should wear chudis and saris and sit in the home. So we all know how much respect they hold for women. Leave apart that this is the same government who had already given a rate chart that if somebody is partially raped, then they will be given such and such amount. And if the rape is full, then such and such amount will be given. So what is this which they are exactly doing now?
Okay.
So like one of the panelists said that all 365 days are for the women.
Okay,
so
Professor
why
Ananya,
only this particular month?
is it just tokenism? Mamata Banerjee's moves just tokenism? Because look at the ticket distribution also. You have given 50 tickets to women. That's a welcome move, but that's just 17% of the total representation. Professor Ananya.
I wouldn't say that, it's very difficult to say that how many percent and all that. But most certainly, I think it falls upon all political parties to give tickets, more and more tickets to women, I'm sure. Because when women come up in politics, they do make a difference. Their priorities are different. They understand more the needs of the other half of society. They don't just end up building statues and, naming stadiums. So I think it's very important that more and more women are given tickets. And I'm sure that all parties, they must feel the need. They must feel the necessity to give more representation. And I would welcome BJP doing the same in Bengal and also the other parties. Because the more women come into power, regardless of which political party they are in, it is all the better for the women.
Okay, Priyanka there says that on one hand, Mamata Banerjee is blocking central schemes, and on the other, trying to create or project this idea that she is the one standing up for women, when she has actually not taken care of the women of the state.
First of all, I would like to say one thing. If you look at women in politics in South Asia, forget about Bengal, forget about India, women in politics can only come to power, to a certain position, if in South Asia, if you are a political widow or a political orphan. If you look at Indira Gandhi, if you look at Priyanka Gandhi, if you look at Sonia Gandhi, if you look at any of the tall leaders in South Asia, in any country, you will find that women have, it's doubly hard for them to come to power. Probably, Mamata Banerjee is the only politician who came to power, not because of the men in her life, but in spite of them. So we need to first appreciate that. The second thing is that she has been, if you look neutrally at what she has been doing, she has, we have this, in Bengal, there is this Kanyashri scheme, which is manifold more than any other girl child schemes in the country, nationally or regionally. statistics speak for themselves. And there are UN reports which suggest that because of the Kanyashri scheme, there was a marginal dip in the child marriages. So, yes, there could be competition. There could be competition between two parties and the state and the center. It
Priyanka,
is not
respond
new
to
in
this,
Bengal.
and then I'll bring in Supriya.
Yes. So when we speak about the crime against women, we do not have a data for West Bengal because West Bengal refused to send the data to NCRB. So I do not understand that why are they scared to send the data? If they are doing so much for women empowerment here in West Bengal, they should have handed over the data. And apart from that, what is the difficulty if there is a scheme of Kanyashri in West Bengal and there are other central schemes also which the people can enjoy and benefit from them? So where is the difficulty? It is just the political attitude which is standing, the political ego which is standing against the central schemes, and they are not allowing the people to get any kind of benefit from those schemes.
Okay, Supriya, you wanted to make a point.
I just want to make a very small point. I don't recognize, I couldn't hear the speaker very clearly, but whoever spoke before the BJP spokesperson, I don't think it's fair to undermine the achievements of Indira Gandhi ji or Sonia Gandhi ji just because they've been political widows or daughters, like she said. I take huge offense to that. I think there are leaders. Indira Gandhi had the courage and the conviction to divide Pakistan into two and to bear Bangladesh. So let's not talk about, let's not undermine the achievements of these leaders. I also want to make a brief point to this panel. I think it's worth discussing. Yes, women in politics. Yes, affirmative action is required. Men are not going to cede the space. We need affirmative action, which is why a women's reservation bill. But let us also talk about the men in politics. Look at the track record of some of our elected representatives. We have 76 lawmakers in India today who face rape charges. Is India all right with it? And I hate to say, with all my disappointment, that BJP leads the charge there. 21 of their MPs and MLAs face serious charges like rape. Rape is a crime of the worst kind. Should we have lawmakers sitting in our legislatures who face charges as serious as these? And NCRB data was withheld for 2-3 years by the central government. So let's not go there. I only want to say, let's clean up our politics. Let's bring more women in. Men are not going to cede space. But let's also look at the kind of people we are willing to elect.
Yes.
Let's look at the kind of people political parties are giving tickets to. Why do we have 21 representatives of the BJP who face serious charges like rape? And I forget, I'm not even mentioning the murder charges here.
Yes,
See,
I
how
would
do
just
you
like to briefly reply
quality
to
of
the
our
women to come into
public
a sphere like this?
representatives or lawmakers is certainly a subject of discussion here, Supriya, because I agree that if they're not ready to cede space, so does it mean that just about every man with that kind of background should be given a place in parliament or in legislature? So that is, of course, a matter of huge concern. Priyanka, quick response, and then I'll give the final words
response, yes, to what Ms. Supriya just said. See, I being a woman, even then I am saying that I do not agree with what she's just said. Why? Because I'm an advocate also. So what I firmly believe is allegations and acquisitions are not enough. There can be allegations, there can be acquisitions and charges. See, until it is proven, a person is innocent until proven guilty. So whoever the lawmakers she's speaking about are present in BJP, I think there are many such in Congress as well. So they are all innocent until proven guilty.
So let's go back to Radhika and Ankita now. Radhika, women through ensuring that they are a gender constituency rather than based on their caste, we often say they are caste neutral constituency based on who they are, have made themselves so important that they matter. But then how do you ensure that tectonic shift when that representation leads to something very, very substantive, much more than just announcing these SOPs?
Yeah, women as a category, as a separate electoral category, you just see very rare manifestations of that. As for instance, in Bihar, when Nitish brought the prohibition policy, it has certainly paid him off in 2 elections where women have voted wholeheartedly. Now, I saw it in Uttar Pradesh, very surprisingly, when Mayawati was about to be elected as the chief minister. In that election, even upper caste women and Muslims, quite a few of them voted Mayawati because they thought she would bring in greater security. Remember, there was a Samajwadi Party government that became synonymous with Gundaism and criminalization and what have you. So they thought Mayawati would bring security deliverance from bad law and order, and that happened. She of course lost the next election, but that's due to a lot of reasons, other reasons, and not just gender issues. But even in the election that she lost, quite a few women, and these are not necessarily Dalit women, they said that, Mayawati ensured our security. We could walk during the day. Then you see it in Tamil Nadu, women cutting across caste and party lines always voted Jayalalitha. Within a family, the male members would be staunch DMK adherents,
Yes.
DMK members of the cadre, and the wives and mothers would vote Jayalalitha.
So,
So
but,
I think that
but
the
do you
whole
get
concept-
any sense of shift or difference in the voter preference for women, whether it's north of Vindhyas or south of Vindhyas? Do they rely on women leaders per se more, as they did, say, in the case of J. Jayalalitha?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a reason for it, somebody talked about Rajiv Gandhi bringing in reservation for women in the panchayats. Before Rajiv Gandhi, Ramakrishna Hegde had done it in Karnataka. So, and in the southern states, you do find that the elected representatives in local bodies and in the panchayats, the women, are genuinely empowered. They don't take dictation from
Yes.
their fathers or husbands or sons. They are elected representatives in their own right. Now you travel upward to North India, and the elected women representatives are either Panchpatis or they are
Yes.
beholden to their fathers or their
Yes.
fathers-in-law. Because in election after election in UP, in the hinterland, when I've tried to talk to women, they are stopped from speaking to me by the male members of their family. You have one peremptory answer from the male members. They will vote for the party or the candidate we tell them to.
Okay.
They don't have, they can't
Yes,
exercise
women
their own right.
yes.
It's as
So
bad
they may
as
be
that
a constituency,
in-
but they may have just gone back to letting the male members in the household decide for them based on their
No,
security
but Maria,
security situation or need changing. Yes, Supriya, quick word.
no, Maria. There is no, Maria. Maria, this issue has its roots in literacy. The
Yes.
literacy rate is better in down south as far
Yes.
as women are concerned, and
Yes.
which is why they are more empowered. So this is a very virtuous, or you may call it a vicious cycle.
Yes.
It comes from literacy. Literacy leads to empowerment. Empowerment leads to more political representation. So it
That's
actually
right.
stems from there.
Yes, that's right. So let me give the final words to you, Ankita. Ankita, is there also a pattern? Do we see that when women vote, they tend to be a little more sympathetic when they're are voting for a woman leader?
Yeah, Maria. At least from our research, we do find that women voters tend to favor parties which have women leaders at the helm. But more importantly, I think a greater pattern emerges when we look at women's choices with respect to CMs who have delivered a particular kind of welfare goods. So in the case of Bihar or Tamil Nadu or Delhi or West Bengal, leaders who have insisted or who have made an effort to cultivate a certain kind of welfareism through the provision of LPG cylinders, cycles, toilets, or even direct benefit transfers to women, they tend to do better among the women constituency. And I think the greatest possible shift in the national scenario would be BJP losing its traditional disadvantage among women voters in the 2019 election, where there is a greater parity between women and men both voting for the BJP. I think one big reason for that could be the welfareist push that the party did sort of really advertise going into the elections. So this I think is a very big pattern, and I think as women participate more in elections, it is possible that policy itself changes and becomes fairly more women-centric.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Supriya, Ankita, Radhika, Priyanka, and Professor Ananya. Thank you so much for joining us. Wishing all of you a happy Women's Day once again. That's all from me. I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.